This is Ian again with UDA Technologies, and I believe we are right about set to get started. We've got everything activated now on our cloud-hosted server, so we're going to be diving in here in just a couple of moments. Just to give you guys a little bit of information about what we're covering today. Our webinar today is ConstructionSuite 10 on AWS cloud-hosted servers or using devices like Surface Pro. Now, we've got a lot of experience working with these over the past few years, especially with all the trade shows and everything that we've worked on, and we're going to share some of that with you guys today. But I definitely want to make sure that you guys have a good idea or get a good picture for what this is going to look like as you guys work on mobile devices through cloud-hosted scenarios. Now, with ConstructionSuite 10, we've actually done a lot of work setting this up so that it does make best use of the space that we have available. And we've seen a lot of strong adoption through that cloud-hosted service. And as we dive into it again, I'm going to highlight some of these points. Or here with me today is my colleague Jordan Davis, who will also work with us today and kind of cover some of the common uses, why we made some of the decisions that we made, and things like that as well. Now, as you may have seen, you might have caught a glance at this, we're just getting everything set up on the cloud-hosted server now. It's a different machine than we've been using for the rest of the webinars. And the computer that we've been using traditionally for these, my computer, actually has a themed version of ConstructionSuite, so it's going to look a little different today as we're working on the cloud-hosted server. You'll see in here that you guys actually have the option to set your own theme. Now, if you guys missed it on the intro, I had one of the attendees today ask if I'm a Patriots fan, and I see the follow-up comment to that as well, which we're not going to touch on. But the question in this one comes into play because the theme that we've been using for the webinar series so far is the patriotic theme, which of course seems very Patriots-ish. And as you're going through, this is one of the great fun new features that you guys will see in ConstructionSuite 10. As we take a look at the cloud-hosted server, we'll make some adjustments to that there as well. In fact, to that end, I'll turn ConstructionSuite over to my colleague Jordan for just a couple of minutes. And Jordan, leading into this, why don't you tell everyone about how well received the UDA Cloud Services has been and what you've seen as some of the big benefits to moving to a cloud-hosted server.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the introduction, Ian. Since the beginning of 2018, UDA Technologies has been proud to offer UDA Cloud Services. We partnered with Amazon Web Services to offer cloud computing for our clients who needed access to enterprise programs, notably ConstructionSuite, accounting softwares like QuickBooks, hosted on a cloud environment. So when we first started offering the service, a few common questions came up. Well, what does that actually mean? What is the cloud? What does it mean to actually host ConstructionSuite or other applications on a cloud? Well, you're kind of looking at it right now. We're sitting in a desktop Windows environment running desktop applications, but the major advantage here, the main benefit is that this cloud server is accessible anywhere that you have access to the internet from any device that can connect to the cloud server. And we've seen fantastic adoption since we started offering this service right at the beginning of last year. At this point, I've spoken with clients who are accessing and working on their estimates in ConstructionSuite. They're meeting with clients to have documents signed right on the spot. They are out updating schedules from the field inside of ConstructionSuite, and all of that information is coming right back to the same centralized location so that their teammates back in the office can see exactly what's happening in virtual real time. And it's such a huge advantage over any other service that we've seen to this point. Ian, I know that you have a lot more history in terms of evaluating different cloud services platforms, but Amazon Web Services truly is in a class of their own, in a league of their own.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually a good point too. Through the years, I've been with UDA Technologies now for about 10 years, which is maybe half of the tenure that the company has been around. And I remember when ConstructionOnline was first becoming a thing. As we worked through it, we've taken a look at a lot of different options as well. Of course, ConstructionOnline for a lot of our clients who needed cloud services or cloud-based project management systems. That was our first kind of foray into the cloud-hosted world. And over the past 10 years, though, we've seen a lot of people trying to use systems like this, like ConstructionSuite, in a cloud-hosted environment as well. And so I have had exposure to most of the major players. We've worked with clients who host companies or who host ConstructionSuite through Cloud9, through Right Networks, Rackspace. MyQuickCloud was actually one of our preferred partners up until we started our own services here. And even self-hosting through companies like Amazon or Google Clouds or Cloud Compute or whatever they refer to it as. Even Microsoft has some cloud-hosted solutions. And what we found is through most of these systems and platforms, having the accessibility for ConstructionSuite and programs like you said, like QuickBooks or PlanSwift, available to you from anywhere on any device is just insanely convenient. This gives you the power of a desktop, but you can access it from your iPhone 10. For example. And we've done that. We've seen this happen. And in fact, next month, when we're at the International Builder Show in Las Vegas, we'll actually be demoing some of these things as well, using probably devices like the Microsoft Surface, the Surface Pro, or Surface Books. We'll have another partner of ours there from iPlan Tables, and he'll actually have a huge touch screen on there for us to be working with as well. We'll also have some of these other devices like iPads, like iPhones. I'm an Android user, so I've got my Google Pixel. And we'll be demoing on a lot of these things, and we'll all be able to pull this up, this ConstructionSuite 10. We'll have access to it from the cloud, and like Jordan said, anything that we change will be accessible. Most importantly, though, when I forget to bring some paperwork with me, I'll always be able to access it quickly and easily just by pulling it up through the app, and I can either email it to myself or share it with my client or whatever we need to do from there. Now, to give you an idea, we're looking at ConstructionSuite 10 now. You guys have seen some of these great features, and the first thing that I'd like you guys to dive into right now is actually some of that customizability. Again, we've already been joking about, some of the football fans, the U.S. pro football fans and everything like that. If you're interested in setting your own theme, as you've just seen him do, go up to the Tools menu, go to your theme settings, and as you're looking through these themes, we have some predefined themes available to you here. And the one in particular that we were looking at is Stars and Stripes. So this will actually help us mirror the ConstructionSuite installation that I have on my local desktop so that everything looks the same between them. As you go through and change out these options, maybe you are a Cowboys fan, so you decide that you want to go through and set a theme that's a little bit more perhaps Cowboys related, or maybe you don't see one that's going to be close, so you want to customize your theme as well. In any of these instances, you can actually take this and you can adjust the theme or the color scheme a little bit so that it fits what you're most comfortable seeing. Or again, if you're just having fun with it, you can go through and pick your favorite pro team and you can set up everything to match here. Now, the reason that I bring this up as a highlight when you guys are working with devices like a Surface Pro is because these theme settings that you work with will be adjusted from time to time based on where you're accessing the device. For example, if you take your Surface to a job site and the job happens to be, out in the open and everything's very bright and sunny, you're probably going to need a theme that makes it a little bit easier to read that doesn't necessarily have that same kind of washed out look, because then you won't be able to see what's going on the screen. So instead of going with like a glacier theme on here, maybe you go with something dark with a high contrast for your letters or your text, like the midnight blue or even maybe the titanium gray or something like that as the predefined sets. These might make it a little bit easier to read when you're looking at a device that has some glare on it, because in this case, a darker screen might make it easier to read the text on the screen. Or perhaps, if it's dark, you do need to switch to something like a glacier white or a desert rose to give you a brighter screen, which would make it easier to read and maybe light your way a little bit as you're walking through the area or your work environment. So again, these different themes are going to really, really help, especially people on the move, because they allow you to adapt to your environment much, much better, which isn't something that I would have thought that we would say maybe even a couple of years ago as we were talking about our cloud-hosted systems. But in here, you have these options. Now, one of the other major parts that you'll see with this as well, we expect you working with ConstructionSuite in the cloud to want to use this on a wide variety of devices, and some of those devices are going to have differing sizes on the display. So one of the major things that you'll see here with Construction Suite 10, like in this screen that we're looking at now, the summary screen has slightly larger text and more space available for these lines, so that if you are looking at it on using something like an iPhone or an Android phone or something like that, you can get more information with the limited amount of screen space that you guys have, and it scales well. You'll also notice that in Construction Suite, both here on like the summary tabs, or Jordan, can you take us into one of the projects, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you dive into the projects, there used to be, this is the perfect screen actually, all projects, there used to be a lot of options for generating a variety of reports. There were buttons everywhere. Now what you'll find now is most of those have actually been gathered together and put in a single drop-down, once again making it easier to access if you've got a limited amount of space on the screen. In this case, you'll also have to be, you don't have to be as precise with the touchscreen options trying to get to those buttons. Previously, each of the buttons when displayed on the phone was probably about the size of the head of a pencil.
Pixels, yeah.
They were very small. In this case, we've simplified it a lot. So if you, like me, try to fat finger your way through your device very often, it'll be much, much easier for you guys to not only find the option that you need, but also select those and click on those and work with them from here. We've also increased the size of some of the buttons, but decreased the size of some of the dashboards. Like you'll find here under the All Projects view, the icons or the bubble sort options up at the top, we've collapsed those down a little bit, or we shrank them because they were taking up so much space when we were working on things like the Surface Pro or some of these remote devices. So now, in enhancing this for use on mobile devices, we actually did shrink some areas to make sure that we were able to make best use of the space that you guys have available on the screen itself. So as you go through and you take a look at some of these screens, sorting down to our list of commercial projects, for example, is still extremely easy to do, but in this case, you can actually get to that area and see the list a little bit more readily, rather than having to move around on the screen, something that in certain cases might confuse the screen you're working on, thinking that you're trying to click into a project or maybe select a series or perhaps something like that. Now, some of the other areas that you guys will see some great enhancements on here too include areas like the calendar within Construction Suite. So if you come take a look at the calendar, there's a few enhancements that we have here. One, which is actually fairly subtle, but I really love, is in the right sidebar down in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, again, it's going to seem like a subtle thing, and it's interesting when it becomes a problem, but we've actually added an entire row to the calendar down here because there was a few instances where the month actually spanned through 6 weeks, but previously was only showing 5 at a time. Now I know, strange little things, but we've got an eye for detail, and we like to pay attention to these sort of areas because we need this information, and when you're working on a very limited screen size, it's critical to get those things in there. Now with the main interface for Construction Suite, there are still 5 weeks, but this is very easy for you to kind of skip month to month. In fact, we even added what Jordan was just working on here at the top. We added a little month selector up at the very top, in addition to the scroll bar on the right, so that you can use either option. These are very touchscreen friendly options that we're adding in here because again, if you're working with a phone or you're working with a tablet or you're working with a Surface, most of what you're doing to interact here is probably not going to be keyboard, and very unlikely that you're working with a mouse for the most part. So we added a lot of these kind of touch-friendly options and features to make the accessibility here much, much better. So as you're looking through, you'll see small little items like this where you can actually skip from month to month. You'll also find in some of the areas, like in the settings drop down here for the calendar, there's a much easier to access area where you can get back to today. So if you are scanning through the calendar and you click a few months ahead, rather than having to click a few months back, you can open this up, click go to today, and it functions the same way as the option down here in the bottom right hand corner did as well, where you have that option to go back to today. Where this is slightly enhanced is now when you click through and go to today on the calendar, it's going to take you back to that time frame within the month you're looking at if you're on the month view. If you skip forward a few years, it'll take you back to the year on that year view. Or again, if you guys are on a day or a week view, it stays within that day or week view as well. Again, small enhancements, but as you're looking through the calendar, it gives you a very, very easy way to do a quick look ahead. For those of us in sales, this is really important. If you're going to step forward a little bit to figure out where you can start lining up your next project, moving from, granted we're into 2019 now, but near the beginning of December, we were constantly stepping forward to the next calendar year to figure out when it would be most appropriate to pull that in. I was actually working with a team over in Virginia not very long ago, and we were doing this on a job site from my colleague's Samsung Galaxy Note, and it was a struggle for him to be able to navigate back and forth. They do use the UDA cloud services as well, so he had it pulled up on the Note. But as he was looking at the year, trying to figure out when they would have availability for their next job, it was a little difficult navigating back and forth, so we addressed that. We've made it much, much easier to do, and now you can maintain your view while skipping around back and forth. Now, some of the other enhancements, of course, that you'll find may not even live within the ConstructionSuite system themselves. As we've been offering these UDA cloud services, we've made it a point to highlight accessibility for certain areas of the server itself or your file systems and things like that. Now, this is one of the major differentiation points between UDA cloud services and some of the cloud services that you'll find available for just hosting like a QuickBooks, for example. If you go with something like Right Networks, they're very, very careful to isolate everything you touch, as opposed to UDA, where we try to open it up since so many of these different pieces are required for programs that you guys are working with. This allows us to make some changes or some subtle enhancements to your usage experience within the computer itself. We add more programs because, of course, you need more programs. Never is it just a single application that you're going to be working with. As much as we might love to be able to do everything within the UDA environment, it doesn't always work that way. So we give you the ability to get QuickBooks on this cloud-hosted server. We assume that sometimes you're going to be on the server and you don't want to navigate away so that you can pull up a web page. So we give you a variety of different browsers so that you can pick your favorite option. We also give you the ability to access files and photos and documents and everything like that, not just by having the folders available or the files available, but we also redirect a lot of your local drives and your local systems as you're working. So you'll see in this instance that, well, I didn't set up much space on the server, but I do have it connected on my local device as well, so I can actually pull from my local file system if needed. So all of this accessibility means that while we're on the server, we don't have to leave to continue working. We've got it set up so that we can carry or use additional printers that you guys might want to work with, so that you have access to various different files or folders from your local devices, or if you're connecting in through something like, again, an Android phone, we have it set up so that it could connect into your file system on the phone, or your camera roll perhaps. Now, of course, you do have to give it permission to do so. We're not just going to go farming all the pictures that you've taken on your phone. God forbid we should grab any of those. But as you guys are working through this, all of this is accessible. We also highlight a lot of the areas within the ConstructionSuite system where you can pull files in from a variety of different systems as well. So here in the file section, you can actually see where we have various different files in ConstructionSuite. You can drag and drop into this area. You can also right-click and pull from various different systems, like cloud-hosted systems or servers like Google Drive or OneDrive or something like this. The drag and drop is probably the most important in this case, though, because if we're on the device, pulling in the files is important. Equally important is your ability to see what you have access to in ConstructionOnline as well. So these two pieces are kind of working together to provide all of this detail to you guys and allow you to continue working from there. So here, Jordan, it looks like you've grabbed one of our purchase orders and dragged it in. From this project, you guys can also see down below some of the different photos and different documents that we've pulled together on ConstructionOnline. It's, again, a perfect tool for seeing how my field team is doing while still working on my own projects and systems here as well. Now, along those lines, for most of you guys using Construction Suite, if you are a current Total Care subscriber, the upgrades for Construction Suite 10 are going to be available to you guys here in the next coming weeks. We are, like we have always done in the past, we're going to be releasing this to our select Total Care clients first. Generally, you guys, the people who are showing up for the webinars, we want you to have first access to all of these tools and features to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to get in here and put your own flavor on all the tools that you guys are working with. Of course, kind of going back to that earlier set, if you're a Patriots fan and you want to go stars and stripes, you can set that. If you're a Cowboys fan or a Panthers fan like me and you want to change those colors around a little bit, you can do that too. If you make terrible life choices and you favor the Seahawks, have at. Again, as you guys are going through and you're working with all of these different systems, though, you guys can go get in there and you'll be the first people who are able to get in there and adjust some of these themes, some of these settings, customize it to work the way you'd like. And all you have to do is keep an eye out for that upgrade prompt that you'll get from Construction Suite. What you'll see as you go through is one day here in the very near future, Construction Suite will pop up a message asking if you'd like to do the upgrade. Jordan has actually pulled it up here in the help menu as well. If you don't see it and you think it might be available, you can also go to help, check for upgrade. Of course, it's not here because this is Construction Suite 10. We haven't released 11 yet, so there's no need to check for the 11 upgrade. But as you're working through this, you guys will see all of these tools and features that are available. And again, this is part of your Total Care subscription. So rather than paying an extra, in some cases, $2,000 or $3,000 per seat to get upgraded to Construction Suite 10, you guys have that upgrade packaged and absolutely free as part of that Total Care subscription. Now, if you're joining us today and you guys don't have Construction Suite or you don't have Total Care, give us a call right away. You can always reach us by going back up to the help menu and go to contact information where you will find phone numbers, email addresses. There may even be a chat box coming in here soon, but feel free to reach out to us anytime now. As you guys are working through all of these other systems, you guys can reach out to us with any questions, comments, or to add in services and subscriptions like cloud hosting, or perhaps Total Care if you don't have it. If you guys are on an older version and you're very interested in upgrading to this new version, give us a call today. You've got all the tools that are available here. Now, along those lines, I think we've covered most of what we have for you guys today with Construction Suite 10 in the cloud, talking about some of these great options and the great tools and everything like that. So we're going to shift over to questions at this point. This will give us a chance to kind of read through some of the questions and comments that you guys have had. I also, once again, want to reiterate that we are very, very invested in making sure that Construction Suite and our cloud services work excellently well on any device that you guys use. Now, I see that we actually have only a handful of iPad users in here, at least only a handful that have admitted that they use iPads so far. A lot more Microsoft tools, the Surface and the Surface Book, Android devices. So I just want to go ahead and remind you guys that we're very, very interested to find out in what you guys use or plan on using to connect to these kind of tools. And if you guys are not cloud hosting right now, give us a call today. Now, with that said, I think that this is going to wrap, again, most of what we have for you. So we're going to shift over to questions. For those of you guys who are thrilled with what you've seen, don't forget to keep an eye out for that upgrade option, and it should be rolling out as early as next week, I believe, but we'll see where that one comes. Now, we will be sending out announcements and everything too, but for now, if you guys do have questions, let us know. And if you guys don't have questions and you're happy with what you've seen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you guys, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the next week or two when we start our series of webinars covering a lot of the new features available with ConstructionOnline as well. It's a busy quarter for us this quarter, and so we've got a lot of things to show off. And don't forget too, if you guys are interested in going to the International Builder Show, we'll be there. Give us a call, reach out to us at any time. We'd love to touch base with you guys, and we may even have some tickets for you guys if you haven't already got your tickets. So give us a call today.
I see a few questions have come in asking about or making comments that, hey, this is interesting. I see that we're looking at Construction Suite 10, but I don't see anything about it on an iPad or an Android device. Like, this doesn't look like an iPad. I want to jump in and say, well, here's the beautiful thing about the cloud-hosted environment that we're working in. when you open up the remote connection to the cloud server, it looks exactly like what you're looking at right here. Now the screen size might be a little different, but you're not limited by the operating system of the device. In this case, you're able to work in fully featured enterprise level software like ConstructionSuite, like QuickBooks, no matter what device you're using. Now this gets really interesting when you start thinking about some of the accessories that you can bring in. I know, Ian, you'd mentioned at one point that you might not have a keyboard on you, and that's true. You might not have a keyboard with you while you're maybe walking a job site and taking different notes down, or maybe updating your schedule, for instance. However, you might have a Bluetooth keyboard with you, which makes working inside of ConstructionSuite a breeze, because now you're not limited. You don't have to drive all the way back to the office just to update some information. It's a pretty fantastic user experience. Now, I will say this. Using ConstructionSuite on a phone is an interesting opportunity because, as we all know, phones are a certain size, but the remote connection apps that we've seen our users actually use to connect to the server give you options to zoom in, to use a magnifying glass. What I find is that the clients I've spoken with who are using mobile devices like a phone to access ConstructionSuite are really using it to check in on certain items to make sure that they have their information down pat before they speak with a client, before they have a critical meeting and they just have to pull that one last thing up that they just totally forgot to print out. It really has come in huge for some of our clients, and it's really all about giving you access to the information that you need to be successful.
I agree. And actually, while we were talking about it as well, I was taking a look at the server hosted on my phone. We won't actually cast the screen in this case either, because the screen from the phone is going to be very, very small and it would look rather poor in the recording on YouTube. But if you guys are interested in taking a look, let us know, because we can actually help you guys download apps onto your device. My preference, by the way, is the Microsoft Remote Desktop for Android and for iOS. But we can help you get these things configured so that you can access it from anywhere. Now, again, our primary focus here is just to talk about some of these features that are going to be available. So if you're using an iPad, which works great, or an Android tablet, equally good, or you guys are using something like an Android phone or an iPhone, all you have to do is get the tools, set the connection, and you'll be able to take a look at it from there. Now, one thing that does make this unique, something that I haven't found works as well on an actual Windows computer, all of these Android and iPhone devices, Apple devices, they all have spectacular voice-to-text features as well. They actually work phenomenally well both in ConstructionSuite hosted on the cloud or through the mobile apps that you guys would find for ConstructionOnline and systems like that as well. So if you guys are walking the job site and you guys are trying to take some notes, take a look at that. You don't necessarily have to have that Bluetooth keyboard in order for you to get all that information in. It's especially friendly if you guys are working with the ConstructionOnline app. But I digress. Again, we'll keep looking through the additional questions. So don't forget, if you guys do have more questions, please send them our way. We'd love to be able to get those questions answered. For everything else, if you guys have anything that you wanted to kind of revisit, or to take a look at the webinars that we've hosted so far this week or any others, don't forget, you can always find us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and search for UDA Technologies, all one word, and you'll find a series of probably about 200 plus webinars and training videos and a variety of other topics as well. This will be near the top of the list. We're recording this right now, and it should be up as early as probably Monday morning. So take a look if you guys are interested in seeing it. We'd love to have you guys on there too.
I think we have just another few minutes left if you guys have any burning questions about the cloud-hosted services or about ConstructionSuite 10, maybe things that you haven't really had a chance to ask it in the other webinars that you attended. We're all ears. We're all eyes, I guess, in this case, because...
Of course, all this talk about football, too, has me guessing as well. It looks like we've got a couple of people who are making projections on how everything's going to finish for the year. I think this is probably one of the most entertaining parts to some of the theming options available within ConstructionSuite. The themes are going to be unique to each user as well. So if you happen to be If you happen to prefer the darker themes because you're in front of the computer all the time, and the light from a lighter theme becomes a little bit difficult to stare at all day, you might certainly go with a darker theme. One of your colleagues might go with a lighter theme because it's easier for them to read, perhaps. Or in the office, you could do what we've done and start making predictions on who's going to win everything and theme appropriately, so that's what you guys see. It's kind of how the pool works. Again, some of these changes that we're working with in Construction Suite 10 have actually led to really, really entertaining situations like this one. Joe, again, we're loving some of these things as we're working on it as well.
Saw a question come in that asked what it was like working on an estimate while on a cloud server. So wanted to show off a little bit about what that's like. What we've noticed with Amazon Web Services uniquely is that there's hardly any input lag. What we can do is we can actually set up the server to be local to your office as close as we can get. They actually have multiple regions covered within the United States and globally. We have cloud hosting clients not just here in the United States, but actually all over the world. I think one of our favorite ones was when we were working with a client over off of the coast of Greece, and so they're actually set up with their own environment at this point as well. Isn't that right?
They are, absolutely. And that's one of the things that kind of helped us make this decision to partner with Amazon over some of the other hosting companies. Some of the hosting companies that you might work with are decent when it comes to providing a cloud-hosted server or a solution. But one of the things that they lack is that global reach. Now, of course, for us, this is a critical component to the decision that we made. We have Construction Suite and ConstructionOnline users across, at this point, almost 80 different countries. And so, obviously, global reach is super important for us. And for you, because there may be times where you guys, once again, hit that magic little stretch of time where you guys are actually just able to take a vacation, perhaps, or something. Now, in those sort of instances, or maybe in your case, you guys just work on projects that have a bit of a global reach, like some of our groups up in Canada. So if you guys are going on vacation, or you find yourself working on projects like hotels or resorts down in the Caribbean, you can actually take the computer with you and get the same great speed because of how Amazon has their network set up. While they offer something like 20 different regions that they can set up to provide global reach, what they also provide is something that they call edge locations. Basically, it's like bouncing all of your work from the server back home through this little incredibly fast little location to offer the information up to you faster than you would ever imagine it possible. In most cases, working with Amazon, it's faster than your local workstation would be. And it's really, really remarkable how they set all of this up. And as you can see from this server that we're working on right now, which I believe is based out of, it's on the far corner of the continental United States. We're down in Alabama. The server should be located up in the Oregon area, or maybe Washington perhaps. But even now, going through and adding in notes and inserting items from RS Means cost books and everything like that, still lightning fast, even though it's doing a fair amount of work on a computer a whole country away almost. So you'll notice this response rate regardless of where you go. In fact, I think the most impressive for us to date has been we hosted a webinar with one of our servers that was hosted in Australia, and of course we're still in Alabama, as close to the other side of the world as we could get, and you would never have known watching the performance of the system and the server itself. So it really has been. It's been a remarkable product, and I couldn't have been happier with the decision that we made to go to Amazon for this partnership. So
agreed.
Just stunning results.
Yeah, it's hard to describe what it feels like because really you have to get your hands on it to understand, but there is no input lag at all whatsoever.
So just looking through some of the other questions, I suppose making the comment about Apple has everybody asking if Apple is okay. Yes, it is actually fantastic, and that's apologies on that one. That's almost a little bit of a joke for here in the team. Most of my colleagues are actually Apple users, to the point that the owner doesn't use any devices other than Apple devices. He's got a Mac. He does use hosted services sometimes so that he can get into and take screenshots. Most of the website designers are also Mac users, so they do the same thing. They use some of the hosting services, which also offers great clarity of imagery and things like that for screenshots. And then, of course, most of our salespeople, most of the people that you would talk to if you guys call, the vast majority of them are iPhone users as well. I'm somewhat of a minority here in the office with my Google Pixel 2. The beautiful thing about it, though, is the device doesn't matter. The performance is the only thing that does, and it's just as spectacular regardless of what type of device you're using. So, good questions, and I'm glad to see that Apple is getting a little bit of attention from you guys too. A little bit, probably a large bit, but definitely glad to see that you guys are interested in making sure that it works for you too, and it will. Now, beyond that, it does look like we're about out of time. So I really appreciate you guys. Last question. We don't need a Mac version any longer. The question is, so why didn't you guys come out with a Mac version? We came out with UDA Cloud. This is our Mac version. It works great on a Mac. No more parallels, no more Boot Camp or VMware or anything like that. Now you can just go with the UDA Cloud Services and it's great. But again, at this point, we are about out of time. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget too that we will be in Vegas for the International Builder Show. So if you guys are going, we would love it if you guys would stop by and speak to us with us about it. If you're on the fence, reach out to us too. We should be able to get you guys tickets if you're interested in going. And then all you have to do is just get there. But it's in Las Vegas, so there's plenty of opportunity for finding new technologies that will help your construction companies work great. But ultimately, thank you guys again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. And don't forget, I think we're actually diving back into the Construction Online webinars, not next week, but the following week. I think is our plan for that one. So keep an eye out on your emails. We'll be sending out an announcements for that. Don't forget to join us for that one. But until then, guys, thank you again. And I suppose it's time to go enjoy your weekends. So have a good one, guys, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.